coming right there. Hey guys, welcome to Tactical Rifleman. Here's what we're doing this week. I'm Imri, this is Ryan from Fit to Fight Republic. What we're going to be discussing is some combatives applications using firearms, right? Just because you have a gun does not mean you have to pull the trigger at every human being you see, right? Even if it's somebody who's coming up and assaulting you or whatever, that does not mean you have to use deadly force. And I've had this happen where a lot of times actually where people may get up and be physical with you, especially, and this was as a soldier, right? But they'll get physical with you, especially because kind of, you know, in certain instances, they know you're not going to shoot, right? So they feel safe in coming up and messing with you. So on one hand, this video is, especially with the rifle application, it's very fit for law enforcement, military people, but in many ways, it's also correct and good information for those of us who are just CCW carriers. Sure. So first of all, a note about safety, okay? Ryan's got a Glock here, and I'm using my, my beautiful AR, and you will notice that there is a orange piece of plastic sticking out of the end of the muzzle. So that is called a barrel block, and that serves two purposes. One is, even if you're using a magazine that for some reason has a round in it, which don't do, that makes you stupid. But if you do, it will not allow a round to chamber, okay? Our magazines are empty. The second thing it allows you to do is, if other people see you training, they know that these guns are safe. They're real guns, but they'll know that there's no round that could possibly be discharged. Okay, so Ryan, what are your thoughts, and take us through some pistol strikes?
Yeah, you know, for us, for the most part, I mean, we do some law enforcement work. For the most part, we're working with guys, girls that, CCW holders, you know, they want to learn basic fundamentals of getting their gun into the fight, and then keeping it, making sure that it stays theirs. So retention is a big part of that. And as you know, especially out of the holster, with retention, it could be that gun has been grabbed and now maybe it's out of battery. So like you said, there's a time and place for striking. Sometimes it may be that I can't fire in that moment in time. The gun's been put out of battery, or maybe I'm out of ammo, maybe I dropped my mag in a fight, all those kinds of things. And so now I need to either buy myself some time and space so I can get my gun running again, or I can make space and go on to something else, or whatever it's going to be. So we keep it super simple, super basic. We get people learning basic strikes, straight punches, how to punch, and then we put a gun in their hands. And it may be a single hand strike, it may be two hands, but we're basically going to punch with the muzzle. We also talk about using the slide as well, but for the most part, if I'm here, just like I would throw a straight punch, the same idea with the muzzle of the gun, or with two hands the muzzle of the gun, and or with the top of the slide and the sights here, where I'm going to use it kind of almost like an edged weapon, based on, again, totality of circumstance. We're in a fight, you're moving, things are happening. Just because I slip or miss or whatever doesn't mean that I can't hit you with this, that I can't cut you with that. And then using that, boom, to now make space, tap rack, whatever I need to do to get back in the fight, if situation dictates that now I'm going to go to higher force. Because at some point, I deemed it necessary to draw my gun. At some point, you tried to take it from me.
Yep.
But maybe the threat's neutralized. If I punch you in the mouth with the muzzle and you fall down, probably I shouldn't tap rack and then unload my magazine into you. I should get my gun running again if I can, right? If it's something that I can take care of quickly, or I can go to a reload or whatever. But I don't always either need to shoot somebody, or I sometimes can't because malfunction, I'm out of ammo, whatever situation it dictates. Maybe all of a sudden when I drew, my background was clear or my foreground was clear, and now it's not anymore because people move, right? So now maybe there's an 8-year-old girl behind my initial threat, and I'm worried about a round impacting somebody that it shouldn't.
Guys, rule number 4, right? Everybody knows the basic rules of firearm safety, right? Rule number 4, always know your target and what's behind it. If you think that you can just plug a dude without knowing what's behind him, you're wrong, Okay.
And
that's-
environments change, right?
Yep.
Like I could draw and go to put rounds on, and now all of a sudden, the background changed.
Yep.
So maybe I shouldn't shoot anymore. And maybe but you're still aggressing, right? You're still coming into me. So now maybe I punch you in the face, I change my angle, and now my background has changed again, and now I can get my gun back in the fight.
Very good. Very good. It's also, we were discussing this before, knife attack, whatever, right?
Yep.
This is a good blocking tool,
Yep.
right? If I'm
Yep.
throwing a
If
punch, what's more effective to block with, a piece
Absolutely.
of metal or your own bone?
Yep, for sure. It makes, especially if my gun's out, why would I try to use my hands when I have a piece of steel in my hand? I can go steel on steel and steel on bone as
And
opposed to.
some viewers might say, well, if you have a gun, why bother blocking? Just shoot him.
Yep.
Guys, if that knife gets to your face first, you're toast.
Yeah.
Right? So you got to
100%.
get that thing
Especially
offline.
like if I'm here, because maybe I'm clearing a house, maybe I'm in my own home and I don't know what's going on. I want to get in my kid's bedroom, and all of a sudden I turn a corner and there you are with a knife. And if this is the game, right? Maybe I get a shot off, but I probably still get stabbed in the face.
Right.
I don't know that that's a win.
Right.
So, and again, maybe I get a shot off, but my son's bedroom is behind you.
Yep.
So it's easy to say, well, you got a gun, just shoot them. But that doesn't always mean that that's the best decision in that moment in time. And I think, and we talked about this a good bit over the last 2 days, decision making when it comes to tactics, self-defense, fighting, whatever, I think there's a big void in our industries when it comes to that. Because it's easy just to say, if this, then that. But the variables are virtually unlimited, and so we have to force people into situations where they have to make decisions, and they have to fail sometimes and then learn from those decisions.
Right. Right. And hopefully failing is not in the real event.
Right.
Right. You want to fail here in the dojo.
Absolutely.
You want to fail in the range. You want to fail in the shoot house, so that you minimize your chances of failing in reality.
That's right. And you have your after action, and let's figure out what went wrong and why, and how could I fix that maybe next time.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Excellent. All right. Well, let's talk about rifles a little bit. Okay. So before we get into the actual strikes with the rifle, what I want to show is how you use your sling. Okay. So there are different ways people like to use their slings. Right. A lot of people like this kind of forward. So I'm a right-handed shooter, so I'll have my left hand and my head in the sling. That's great for a lot of things because it keeps my gun in nice and tight. It helps with weapons retention. It actually helps just this weight of my left elbow here. Just this weight of my left elbow on the sling is actually bringing that stock into my shoulder, which is exactly what you want for shooting. Problem is, I can't hit. So what you'll see oftentimes, especially if you see how we sling a weapon in Israel in the military, right? Oftentimes, and you should, by the way, you should be able to go back and forth. It's not difficult. Try it. So oftentimes, if I'm climbing a ladder or whatever, my gun will be back here. And that's one of the reasons why I like these slings that give you an opportunity to shorten and lengthen the sling, kind of like the TR1. And so what we'll do is oftentimes you'll see that when we're clearing a room or whatever, the sling is going to be pretty loose, and it's just going to be around my neck. No, it's not comfortable to let your gun dangle, and you'll get hit in the junk if you're walking around like that, right? That's not the purpose. The purpose is my arms are holding up my gun. And so I can clear rooms, I can do whatever I need, but if the need arises, I want to adjust that sling to the full extension of my arms, right? So I should be able to punch beyond where I'm actually trying to hit. I'm getting longer reach than just a punch. Cool. So you should be able to, this is like a swimming motion, right? Swim, you can do these things with your gun. It's really not a big deal. So, all right, so here's a basic progression. Again, this is super simple. There's not much to learn, and simplicity is essentially really what we want to rely on in training as much as we can, because we don't want to be doing 5 million kung fu moves. But there is a nice little progression. It's a little bit hard to train sometimes on a punching bag. What we used to do in the military is we would go to the supply office and we would take sleeping bags, and one dude would hold up a sleeping bag, and you beat the crap out of the sleeping bag, And then when that thing's all ripped up, you go to supply and you get a new one, and no big deal. Since we actually have to pay our hard-earned money for things, we don't typically do that. But what we can do is we can practice this in the air. I recommend with a lot of things, you can do it in front of the mirror. That gives you a target to focus on, right? You're not being vain, right? You're just essentially shadow boxing against a human figure, right? So first of all, we have the forward strike, right? Muzzle thump, and that can go from anywhere. If I'm clearing a room, if I'm in the low ready, let's say, and my stock is kind of coming up on my shoulder, as we sometimes do for certain types of entries, or even if I'm in the high ready here, right? I can always muzzle punch. I can do it with one hand from the weapons ready position. It's great for some other weapons retention. Somebody puts a hand on it, right? I can wipe your hand off. I can kick you off of my gun and go back to the muzzle thump. So there's that. We have a sweep, and that sweep happens essentially, I'm hitting them really with any piece of metal, but really what I'm going for is my flash hider or muzzle brake or can or whatever you happen to have on your fancy weapon, okay? So we'll have a sweep shot, and that'll go anywhere on the face. If you hit the neck, it's also okay. So a downward sweep, and then you can take a downward sweep to a muzzle punch. Another great shot is that people don't typically expect is actually I can hit with the bottom of the magazine, and that will shoot that right to your nose typically. Nose, throat, right? Those are very effective. And so if I'm here and somebody's coming up at me, it's a very quick little maneuver, right? You can sweep, you can also hit with your stock. So what we'll do, people that know me know that I'm a big fan of elbows. I like that close range, right? So that elbow still applies, and I can throw that elbow depending on where you have your stock, right? For CQB purposes, this is even more extended than often I use. If I'm running plates, it's gonna be all the way closed. So, and that's the basic idea, right? So here's a progression. You can start with a muzzle thump, okay, hit, back to the muzzle thump. And it's really that simple. What gets in the way is your sling, right? So you really wanna make sure that you play with this, set it up correctly. If you get a sling where you can shorten it, and then you can fight out of different positions, whatever's correct for you. So that's kind of my spiel on that. You can practice that. I'll show you a different angle, right? And you can switch up between the moves. But essentially, you have your sweep, you have your elbow, sweep, okay? You have your magazine strike, sweep, punch. You can just keep going all day long. And that's pretty much the deal.
Yeah, simple, basic stuff that is super effective. I think it's a good point about the sling, though, because it's like we talked about earlier. People have their favorite way of doing things, but that doesn't always translate given the context.
Right.
So
yeah, just because you saw somebody else do it one way does not mean that's the only way that you should know how to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. Fights change. They're dynamic.
Right.
You got to change with them.
Also, by the way, something I've so far neglected to mention is, let's see, can you grab a stick, please?
Sure.
So this stick can represent all kinds of stuff, right? I can be gripping my gun in the regular way, or if he's got a hammer or something really heavy, right, I might opt to grab my gun here. This is a wonderful blocking tool, right? You can fight this way as well. Yeah, you're not pulling the trigger, but guess what? You don't have to always pull the trigger, right? So anywhere that comes from, all you have to do is learn how to angle your rifle differently. If you happen to catch it in here between the mag, right, you can kind of trap. You see how I've trapped it? I can still strike. So really simple, guys. Just understand your tools.
Yep. Good stuff.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan.
Appreciate it.
All right, guys. That's our deal for this week. If you like it, click the thumbs up button and all that stuff. You know what to do. Come check us out next week.
If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter so you don't miss out on anything.